And let me thank the 1893 Umthwakazi Human Rights Restoration Movement for organizing this event. You have kept the fire burning, and we hope you will continue playing this critical role of conscientizing our people. We really need such kind of events to keep the fire burning. And there are a lot of lessons which we can learn from history, from our history. And we need to understand that there is nothing new under the sun. Okwenzeka kudala kuyophinda kwenzeke njalo and kwenzakala lamanje. So we need to be cognizant of that. Well, talking about Queen Lozikheyi, we're talking of a revolutionary queen, and we're talking of a commoner who rose to a level of a regent. And I will try to avoid the temptation of speaking about her husband, the king, as it is a common trap. When we talk of successful and prominent women in our societies, we end up talking more about the husband than the woman. But well, as a Marxist, Leninist, and Fanonian, my presentation will definitely focus on the local conditions which she lived in, look at her conditions, and we'll try to draw parallels to our conditions and try to learn some few lessons on how she handled her conditions, and we see how we can handle our own. So we'll look into that, and also in our presentation, I'll look at the economic factors at that given time. We'll also look at the political factors at that given time, and all that. Be it as it may, at the end of the day, it would be unfortunate for me to come here and present to you, comrades, friends, citizens, and our fellow countrymen, and present it without trying to address the issue, the burning issue, the national question. And also, we need to talk about what needs to be done. Then that's how we are going to structure our discussion, and I hope all that's going to fit in the time allocated. But let's start with the marriage of Queen Lozikheyi. Lozikheyi came from the Dlodlo families. At that given time, it was necessary for her to be married to the Dlodlos, to have a child married to King Lobhengula. But let's go back a little bit. If we go back, you would realize that we had Nkulumane being the heir to the throne, ezalwa nguMandiweni. Nkulumane, it was not contested who's going to take over from King Mzilikazi. Then, unfortunately, we had that in Tabazinduna Skikaba, where we had a major problem in Tabazinduna. That was a crisis. And King Mzilikazi at that given time had no choice but to deal with that issue in a violent manner. If you remember quite well, Umalume kaNkulumane, those of you who have read that would remember that Kondwan and Diwen appointed Nkulumane to be the king, or should say to officiate, not only to be the king, but officiate Ingqala ceremony. By officiating Ingqala ceremony, it meant that it could be interpreted as that he had taken over the kingdom. So when King Mzilikazi came, he decided to deal with everyone who participated in that small function, where you find Nkulumane's mother being killed, Nkulumane being sent to exile, and a lot of his Indunas, and including Kondwan and Diweni, being killed in Tabazinduna. And also you would recall that even Lobhengula's mother, King Lobhengula's mother, was also killed with Nkulumane's mother. So this created a crisis at that given time. A crisis in the sense that King Mzilikazi didn't have the royal queen, didn't have the senior queen. He had already killed Umama kaMzilikazi. He had always killed Umama kaNkulumane, sorry, and also killed Lobhengula's mother, who happened to be Umthwanyelo, a maid. So the claim, Lobhengula's claim to this throne was weak, very weak, in the sense that she came from a maid, and at that given time, being born from a maid was more of Umthwanyelo, was actually more of a commoner than anyone else. Yes, he is a prince, but of less status. Then you have a situation where the king doesn't have a senior queen, but the king loved Lobhengula. So he tried to influence his right-hand man, Umnumbata, who happened to play a lot of politics at that given time. He managed to untwist izinduna to accept King Lobhengula. After untwisting izinduna to accept King Lobhengula, he also talked to, if we go back, you recall that you had Ingqungqulu playing critical role, the religious leaders at that given time. And up to today, you see religious leaders taking a stand in Zimbabwean politics, having of much influence in Zimbabwean politics. When it started long back, so Mnumbata had to approach these leaders, these religious leaders at a given time, that Ingqungqulu, to endorse Lobhengula. But even if he was endorsed, his claim to the throne was still weak. So he needed to marry from one of the families, one of the strongest families in the state. So he had to marry from the Dlodlos. Why the Dlodlos specifically? Mnumbata had to arrange that marriage with the Dlodlos because the Dlodlos you had a lot of military men. They had this military expertise, and also the Dlodlos were izinyangas and course they were traditional healers. They had imithi yonke le which they needed, one or which was the army to ukuthi impi ingakaqali. Before the war started, the soldiers would get these herbs to prepare them for war. So they were a very crucial family which they needed to be on Lobhengula's side, and it worked for them years later. Then also Lobhengula had to marry Uxwalile, the daughter of Usoshangana. This was at a state level now. To marry this one at a state-to-state relationship, because they had a lot of enemies around them, which included some of the people who were outside the Lozikheyi State, the other Shonas, the other section of the Shona-speaking people who did not actually comply to some orders which the king used to give. So you had this kind of a crisis around, and they needed to handle this crisis. So it was handled through marriages. And you see the rise of Lobhengula, who to me or to most people would say was more of a commoner getting to the throne. Then after getting married to Lozikheyi, that's when we start having getting to know Lozikheyi. Lozikheyi, apart from these healing powers and all these powers which she had and that the family had, now she was assuming a very pivotal role, a very important role in Ndebele society. Pivotal. So Lobhengula needed to be utaqiniswe. And remember, he always thought that uyaphenduka kuphela uNkulumane to take over umbuso. So he needed someone onjengomama uLozikheyi to make sure that he holds on power, a grip on power, he was strong. So that was basically the issue why she had to get married to Lobhengula. But what gets more interesting apart from that is that she comes in as a commoner. Of course, the family had some status in the society because of her role as young and all that, but she comes in as a commoner. Already Lobhengula had other wives. Then Lobhengula marries a senior wife, a royal wife, from Ososhanga. Now he marries Uxwalile. Uxwalile comes and becomes umama womuzi. We need to understand this. Bekusiba indawo lapho kwakhiwe khona, you have provinces where you have got izinduna taking care of those provinces. Being a mini state, let's think of it as a devolved state where izinduna would be governing in those small states, and izinduna leziyana, they did not govern bebodwana. The king would take Abu Mama. This is the role which the women played at that given time. They would take their sisters, the princesses, would take the princesses, princesses, they were given amaros. They would take 2 or 3 princesses and send them to a certain province with their family. When they get to that province, the senior of those princesses becomes Umama Woms. Umama Woms. So in all the provinces, you would have more of a dual system where you had, which administered quite a number of issues in that area, was the chief administrator in that area, but you also had Umama Womuzi. Inina Lomzi at that level would attend to some issues, and the king would actually get information from Umama Womuzi. So was more of a minister of state in that area. So in all the areas where in Duna Corner, the princesses were sent Balapana and that. Then in the capital, you would have Inina Yomzi, and this was a very powerful political position. If you remember, under King Shaga, you had Nkabai, who presided over 3 or so kings, Nina Lomzi for those 3 kings. So you would have a situation, this kind of situation, and Lozikheyi was rising to that level. She ended up being at that level. But that level or that position was of equal status to a position of chief advisor and the prime minister of the nation. That has to be said. Inina Lomzi was a powerful position. And the Europeans, when they came, they didn't actually understand the role which these women played in the society. They didn't actually understand this position which was played by these women in the society. But when she had all the power, she had everything, but she lacked also credibility to be at the top, Lozikheyi, because she came as a commoner. But then Uxwalile, the first wife, or the queen, or the senior wife, unfortunately did not give abantwana. She was not, actually she had quite a number of pregnancies, but unfortunately she had stillbirth, she never gave umntwana to King Lobhengula. So another challenge came in. She was later relegated to Uxwalile, to an ordinary person. She left the royal crown, the royal town, and she stayed just close to Nkai, moving away from Obulawayo. Then that was the rise of Mama Lozikheyi to a powerful position of being in Lomzi, which was equivalent in terms of status with Umhlaba, who was the prime minister of the Matebele State. Then, by the time we got to 1896, by the time we got to the demise of the king, what you would realize that by the time we got to the demise of the king, taken over the position, when she took over that position, now we had two commoners at the top of the Ndebele hierarchy. And she was now equivalent to Umhlaba. Umhlaba was the sign of Umumbata. We had taken over being the prime minister of the state. So she was at that level. She was now discussing issues at that level. She was now more of a diplomat. When we had visitors coming in to the Matebele State, she was the first person. In other sources, they say she acted more as an immigration officer. Everyone would have to meet her first. Why you're getting to the state? Would you want to see? What presence do you have? So she became a chief diplomat of the Matebele State. That's how you can put it. But at the same time, as Umama Omzi, she continued to their roles of coming up, changing our policies, such as marriage policies, where the Bantu Besintwini can marry Abelungu, because Abelungu were coming in and all that. So she was faced with quite a number of critical and very important decisions to make. Then with that kind of life, then we go to the religious life. The religious life, Abu Dlodlo became more powerful. They were introduced to Injelele. They were given Idula, a shrine to take over. And they now became even more powerful because they were now dealing with the Mwali religion, which was far much different from the Nguni religion,